The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mase. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason, along with Sue 𝐂𝐚𝐫𝐶. This is the show where we talk about everything happening in the world of pop culture. Great guest today. She is a comedic genius, great stand-up, great writer. Carol Leifer is going to be with us. You and Carol have been friends for a long time, right, Sue?
Decades.
Decades. Wow. Decades. By the way, I had a shitty day, so I'm not in the mood.
What's up, man?
Should I be honest?
Of course.
So I will vent.
Okay.
When I do Mason in Ireland, John and I are normally in a studio and we're doing the show together and we play off of each other and, you know, there's chemistry and all that stuff. Now, John has built a palatial estate in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and he does the show from there while I'm still in the studio, and I feel like we don't have any chemistry. We can't play off of each other. So it's very frustrating. But when you build a palatial estate in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I guess you guys spend a lot of time there.
So the thing is that you're in the studio with everybody else and he's the outlier.
Right. And technically, like, it's just me in the studio, the air studio. And then I've got people in the side studio, but it's really just me alone in this room playing against a wall. So,
yeah.
Pisses me off, but what are you going to do? So anyway, that's why I'm in a bad mood. That's a good way to start a show right there.
Well, we'll have to change that. We got to put you in a good mood.
So we're going to talk about a couple of pop culture things that I have been really burning on. One of them, and you went to see Sinners, the Ryan Coogler movie, and it stars Michael B. Jordan as twin brothers. What was your take on Sinners, which, by the way, surpassed 200 million domestic this weekend?
It's one of my favorite movies in a long time. It is, look, you know me. I never like to know anything that's happening with the film.
Yep.
So I didn't know that it was going to have the spiritual vampire horror. That was like a total surprise.
Yep.
I thought it was great on every level. It was shot beautifully and apparently shot in a very what do I say? I wouldn't say provocative, but the type of the ratio of how they shot it was like really different than, I don't think they have ever shot anything like this.
Right.
And I wanted to get it correct, but they shot it in 65 millimeter.
65 millimeter?
But they combined two different styles. It was like this IMAX.
Right, it's good for IMAX,
Ultra IMAX 70 millimeter. So they kind of combined both. So like the wide shots were really unique.
Yeah.
The landscape shots, the saturation of how it was shot. I mean, it's historical. It's horror. The music was just
is crazy. So good.
Heart-pounding music.
There is a great sequence in there, you'll know, where there is music, but then they're showing like African tribal music, and they're including a DJ spinning, and it's like music is cutting through time and opening this portal to the past and to the future.
It was crazy. They had rap. They had like a LL Cool J kind of a dude.
Yep.
And then they had like they had an Alvin Ailey dancer.
Yes.
They had a Monkey King, or like some Asian opera. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah, I love that. It was just hypnotic, throbbing and hypnotic, and just, and the vampire part of it is interesting because, the vampires are showing up. This is my interpretation. They're showing up for the music. They like the music.
Yeah.
And once they are there, they start, and it's haunting. It's a metaphor for the way blacks were treated during this era. Vampires, white, start picking people off one by one. And in the end, who are the sinners?
Well, that's a very interesting question because I think everybody was a sinner.
Mm.
I mean, I think that especially during that time for Sammy, the preacher's son, to be playing the music that he was playing in his father's eyes, he was a sinner.
Right.
I think that the brothers, Michael B. Jordan, oh my God.
Yeah.
He was doubly incredible.
Doubly, yeah. Two for the price of one.
Playing twins. He was just, and the subtlety between he and his brother, it was just brilliant. There's so much, and I hate the word unpack, but there's so much to unpack.
Yeah, there
here.
really is. I'll tell you, the idea, first of all, it's more than a vampire movie. It's like sometimes you go to a movie and it's like, okay, that's a vampire movie. I get it. But this is really so different because of the music. It's because it opens up with the kid, Sammy, in front of his dad, who's a minister, and he's holding that piece of a guitar and telling him to drop it because it's the devil's music. I think probably you're right. They are all sinners in a way. Anybody who gives into the music, I think, is viewed as a sinner. Obviously the vampires, sinners. I guess the one guy that's not a sinner is the preacher.
Right. Yeah, because you look at and the Irish guy, what was his character's name? I forget what his character. Yeah.
Lead vampire?
The lead vampire. I forget his name, but there was like a backstory with the two brothers when they were in Chicago. I guess there was kind of a warring between these black guys and the Irish mob and the Italian mob.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I guess there was a ship that sank and it was blown up. And apparently that vampire was probably one of the survivors. I'm almost positive that's part of the story. So there is a vendetta against blacks.
Yeah.
But they were also Ku Klux Klan. There was a Klan suit in that couple whose house that he made them vampires. So they were all part of that.
Yes.
And then, you talk about the sinners. I mean, one of the women the woman that Sammy fancied, she was married. So she was cheating on her husband. And then you look at the Seinfeld character.
Steinfeld, yeah.
She was a sinner. I mean, everybody was. But it was just such a combination of unbelievable story. And like I said, I mean, the historical part of it was very, very compelling.
Yep.
The music, and I had to pee so bad. Like there was maybe like a half hour, 45 minutes left in the movie, and I didn't want to leave. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh my God! I'm like, the next time I go to the movies, I'm gonna have to wear Depends because I was sitting there in so much pain, but I couldn't leave.
Right.
So I make it to the credits, and then I leave, and I go home, and I actually thought to myself, this will be one of those times where they did something in the credits, and I missed it. So
you missed
of course,
the whole thing.
Well, I came home and I read about. Well, there was a lot that I missed.
Yeah, there was. Yeah,
it was like alternate endings.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, so that part of it too. I mean, I love when they do stuff like that.
Let's just also say Delroy Lindo steals every scene.
It's great.
He's so good. He's been on the show, yeah?
No.
Have we not had Delroy Lindo on the show?
Mm-mm.
I'd love to get him on. He's very serious.
Yeah.
Very serious. By the way, what's interesting too about this movie, Ryan Coogler cut a deal, I think it's with Warner Brothers, where the rights to the movie revert back to him after 25 years. So he will own the movie again in 25 years and make any revenue that comes from the movie directly to him. And it's a lot of people in Hollywood think this is a bad precedent. You don't want to give filmmakers rights to their movies after 25 years because we're going to lose the ancillary money that comes in down the line from it. But that's the way they got Ryan Coogler to do the movie.
Right, right. So there was also talk about, is there going to be a sequel to this?
Mm-hmm.
Because was it Smoke or Stack?
Smoke or Stack? I
trying
forget
to remember
who survived it. Smoke. One's a vampire, one's not. One's a Smoke, one's Stack.
Oh, Smoke.
Smoke survived?
Smoke survives, and he ends up with Mary, who's Haley Steinfeld's character. So so they were saying, do they do a sequel of the two of them still kind of wandering around,
Here's the
Mississippi?
Thing. It's the second biggest grossing movie of the year. I suspect there will be a sequel by hook or by crook. There's no way they're not going to make a sequel to this. I just think, particularly this one, it's rare to see a really original movie, not based on IP, serial characters and all like that stuff on the studio, the Kool-Aid Man. We see that all the time. Minecraft movie. It's not that. It's like a real original. And you got to say, Ryan Coogler is an auteur. He has created something really, really different and really unique and completely compelling.
Yeah, it kind of it had shades of a Jordan Peele film.
It did. It had a touch of that. Yes,
like a little Get Out kind of. There was
had that vibe,
a creepiness, a scariness about it. Yeah, it was just so
all in all,
smart.
I try not to use this word very often, but I do think this movie is a masterpiece. I walked out blown away.
Yeah.
All right, let's do Righteous Gemstones. The finale has aired, and this has been a great show. The cast is unbelievably funny. John Goodman, Danny McBride, Adam Devine, Walton Goggins, Edie Patterson, who is just genius as Judy Gemstone. It's hard to do a final episode, and this one, and I give it the full benefit of the doubt, I thought it was a little overstuffed. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think they had a lot of things to wrap up.
Yeah.
But I do like the way it ended. I love that Miss Laurie resurfaces.
Yeah.
And says, you need I forget what her line was, but it was basically, you need a deckhand or you need a partner or
right.
Whatever. My favorite character late in this show is Dr. Watson.
Dr. Watson, the little monkey.
The monkey. He was such a great ad.
Yep.
It was so funny. And I was hoping that when he was given away, I was praying that they were going to find a reason to bring him back.
Right.
And
sure enough.
They should do a spinoff with Dr. Watson.
Just Dr. Watson.
Well, Dr. Watson and whatever his life is.
So the thing that I thought, it went, so Sean William Scott plays, it turns out to be a killer, shoots everybody. And you originally think, okay, this is super dark and all three of them are like dragging themselves across the floor together after they've been shot. That's the thing about this show. They can make anything funny.
Well, Scott also, he got shot in the head and he's like completely bleeding out. There's like a pool of blood and he's talking and having a conversation and it's going on and on and on. It's like the back of your head is blown off.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I missed? This is what I missed from the finale. I love the show most when they are the obnoxious mega church performers who are stealing money from gullible followers. And those are the scenes, them on stage, particularly with music, are pretending to love God, or pretending to love the church. To me, those are the highlights of the show. I was looking for one big production that was wildly inappropriate to wrap the whole thing up. Instead, we got a a shooter situation, which was fine. We get the Miss Laurie situation, so she stays along. You get a nice moment from Eli, John Goodman, sort of at peace with things. I think, though, this is easily the most offensive show I've ever watched.
Yes, the language was just...
The language is crazy.
I mean, I can't believe that they kept a straight face throughout the shoot. I mean, and I always wondered how much of that they improvised, because they just... I'm sure Danny McBride just said, just go.
Yeah.
Just go off. But, you know, to your point, I kind of, there was a part of me that kind of felt, oh, it was kind of cool that Miss Laurie came back and it kind of wrapped up sweet. But I guess I expected it to be, to not do that in a way.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Because you
to
didn't...
not be sentimental.
Yes, to not be sentimental, only because whenever they are sentimental, it's always followed by something really egregious.
Yes,
and
yes.
and nasty and dirty. And I don't think that this family is ever... I never really looked at this family as being anything but who they really are, you know?
Right.
So that was disappointing. And, you know, and Billy Bobby, you know, Baby Bobby, whatever.
Baby Billy.
The fact that he, you know, threw in the towel and decided
Teen Just is genius, though. Teen Just is so damn funny. Teen Jesus is Teen Just. And he's playing him.
And he's playing him. Yeah, I mean, and not having something like really, really funny with him at the end, because he kind of wrapped it up that he like had this, you know, he I guess saw the light and this relationship with his wife and his kid, and because he was so mean to the nanny. Oh God, he was so horrible.
Yeah, terrible. She was awful. That was awful. Yeah. If you are looking for a wildly inappropriate show, look no further than the Righteous Gemstones. And by the way, last episodes are tough to land. It's tough to stick the landing. I give them all the points in the world for giving it a go. It doesn't affect the way I feel about the rest of the show. I thought the ending I thought was a little overstuffed, but still fun. Still fun. Hey, if you are watching this show right now, hit the like button. Point down. Like button. It's down. Yeah, I want you to do it too.
You want me to do it?
Yeah, like button. Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment, a review, a show idea. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, you can subscribe to the show. Leave us a 5-star rating and a good review, a really good review. And if somebody you think Culture Pop Podcast is right up their alley, tell them about it. We're always looking for more viewers, more listeners. And here we go. Our guest today is a comedian, writer, producer, and actress. She has had a prolific, amazing career. Started as a stand-up before focusing on writing. She's written for shows like Saturday Night Live, The Larry Sanders Show, Seinfeld, and Curb Your Enthusiasm. Her third book is out now. It's called How to Write a Funny Speech on Marriage, Aging, Career Changes, Family, and Other Funny Business. Carol Leifer joins us. Carol, thank you so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate this. Huge fan of the book. Huge fan of you. Of course, friends with Sue for a long time.
Oh, a million years.
How did you guys meet, and how did you end up working together at the very beginning?
Well, Sue, you started after me, right?
A little bit after you.
Yeah. So I don't know, like the kismet moment, but we probably met in the club, right?
We met at the comic strip.
At the comic strip. Okay. But I don't know if you know, Steve, but Sue and I share an amazing road story together. I don't know if you've heard it, but I'm happy to tell you about it. Okay. So we were going to work a club wasn't it Phoenix?
It was in Phoenix, yes.
Right. And we dreaded these gigs together because we knew these clubs were so crappy. So on the plane, we would kind of trade, like, maybe the club burnt down. I don't know. Maybe there'll be a windstorm and the club won't be operating. Anyway, we get there. And this is in the days of the comedy condo. And what that was club owners got very savvy. They saw, instead of shelling out money for comics hotel rooms, they landed on the smart idea, oh, we buy a condo. This way we can deduct it, and it's so much cheaper that we'll throw the comics in there. So Sue and I get to the comedy condo, and, we walk in and we put our suitcases down and we see, another guy there. Hey, how are you? Okay. Sue and I think it had a pool, right? Sue, maybe?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I have a picture that you took of me at that pool, and my expression is like, anyway, so then we get ready for the show, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Shower, we're at the front door. We call to the other guys, hey, it's 7:00. We're leaving now for the club. He comes downstairs. He's like, oh, I'm not a comic. I just live here.
Really?
Yes.
So he's more of a roommate.
An uninvited roommate. We thought he was our opening act.
Yes. And this is what the state of security for women was at the time. We'll throw any guy in just to live with you for a week. We don't have to, he doesn't have to pass a lie detector test or anything. And we shared that week.
Wow.
Well, what's so crazy is that you think of any other profession, like if we were two dentists on the road, right, at going to a convention,
Yes.
would they ever have some strange guy like in an apartment with us? I mean, it's just insanity the way they treated comics.
Yes, the ADA would have shut that down in 2 seconds. Yeah,
So
so we had shared some good times and some hard times.
So you came up in this world like Sue as a woman in the business, which is a really tough business. What has that been like for you? How difficult has it been?
I would say that I don't know. I don't know how Sue would answer this question, but I've never really thought of it as a hardship, because there was so much support when I started out from male comics, from every comic. And also, I always viewed it, Steve, as an advantage because there were, especially when I started, there were so few women doing it that we got more attention and we got on lineups quicker. So I always felt my difference that way was definitely a big bonus.
Yeah, I mean, I never felt it was a hardship because, we were one of the guys, and the male comics treated us as equals.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Uh-huh.
You would get some douchey MC sometimes that would introduce us as, oh, now we have a female comic or a woman comic,
Yeah.
And like we were from like some other planet.
Like a novelty
or something.
act, yeah.
Like a novelty act. And then say something really like vile, like, I like screwed her right before the show, or I'm gonna screw her after the show. I mean, really sexist, horrible crap. What bothered me the most was that you never would have two women on the same show. And Carol and I, and that was early on. And then it changed. Like Carol and I and Kathy Ladman were very lucky at a certain point. Bud Friedman from the Improv, he had, a lot of different clubs all over the country. And we used to perform at Harrah's in Las Vegas. And I think we did it twice a year. And it wasn't billed like women comics,
Mm-hmm.
It was just the three of us. And it was great because we were all headliners. We never got to work together. So it was the greatest gig.
Yes, that really was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't put two women on in a row. But I remember standing at the bar at Catch Rising Star, and Rita Rudner would be there and me, and knowing that we couldn't follow each other. I kind of tried to use it as a teachable moment to the younger generation, because you just have to kind of accept things as they are sometimes, and know that it will get better. Because I think at the time, if we've been like, listen, you guys, we got to go on whenever we want, and you just kind of go with the flow as you kind of have to, and then you see that things will evolve. You would agree, right, Sue?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, is it a special kick? I know you've written on Hacks, which is one of my favorite shows. Just absolutely. Is Deborah Vance like your? I mean, she's your spirit animal, right? I mean, here's this powerful woman who's taken over late night. I just think that must be a kick for you.
It is. From the minute I saw the show, I was hooked because I felt like not only the story of a woman comic who's been around forever, but the fact that Jean Smart is the first actor I've ever seen who plays a comic so convincingly you believe that she's a comic. There's so many tells for comics to look at actors of where they're not really, there's subtle things where they're not cutting it, and she just aces every single moment of it.
Wow.
Yeah.
She's just legendary. She's such an amazing, and that's so cool to see her get this great role like this at this point in her career. It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of the hardest things to actually portray the stand-up world. I remember when Punchline came out, and Sally Field, God bless her as an actress in many other roles, but it was just such a red flag. I mean, it was just so false. Although I thought Tom Hanks played an amazing comedian.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, he used to go on at the Improv, I guess, when he was like rehearsing, trying to get his, stand-up, feet wet. He actually was pretty believable, but the stand-up world was so fake. Like, do you remember, Carol, they had lockers?
Yes.
They had lockers in the comedy club, like they were waitresses or something.
Yeah.
It was like that, like has never happened. There's no comedian locker room.
No, and certainly not in the comedy condo. Does they have lockers?
Yeah, right.
That's for sure.
So, side trip. What do you think of Rachel Brosnahan in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel? Did she pass the test?
For me, I don't know. I felt like there were a lot of challenge. Like, I didn't love that it didn't stay true to the stand-up comedy of the time. I mean, I remember when she would start cursing on stage and be very blue, she would have been, I don't understand. They still had Lenny Bruce in the show. She would have been like thrown in jail and taken off stage. I don't know why they bent the time that much. So that threw me off, the authenticity.
So you wrote some very memorable Seinfeld episodes. What was your, I mean, I'm looking at the list here. What was your favorite Seinfeld episode that you wrote on?
I would say probably the Marble Rye.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
That really was, well, I mean, not only the fact that I wrote it, but of course, I always have to say, the final draft always became, the final pass was Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. But the next, our son is 19, and a lot of things that I always find it fascinating what he doesn't get. Like, he thought black and white was like, that was what life was. Like, he was in black and white. Like, things you have to explain. So sometimes I've tried to explain to him what a water cooler show was. That's why he doesn't even know what a water cooler is. But, back in the day with Seinfeld, I mean, the numbers that the show got were crazy. So the thing I love most about the Marble Rye is the next day after it aired on Thursday night, the writers, we went to Brent's Deli in Northridge for lunch, and they had a big banner when you walked in, like, we have the famous Marble Rye from Seinfeld. That was like, oh my God, that was like incredible.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. So you were saying how Larry and Jerry would get the final pass. Now we worked on a sitcom together.
Oh,
Ellen.
yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Ellen
yeah. I've
DeGeneres.
heard about this experience.
Yeah.
And, the one thing that was always a little hard to get used to when you write your script, and for me anyway, and, everybody goes off and reads it. They go in their office and read it, and you hear all this laughter, and then So that's on Monday. And then during the week, your script is changed. And
Yes.
and you're like, wow, you were laughing so much at everything. Why are you changing so much of it? And it's just something that you just have to get used to. I mean, the fact that you handed in a script that they laughed at is a victory. And you got to
Yes.
take that and not be too precious, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that was the benefit of working at Seinfeld, that you knew your draft would only come up with their touch on it. And I learned a lot as a writer because I learned, I looked at what they kept of mine. I learned from what they threw out and what they altered. So, and even at Curb, working with Larry David, he would always take the germ of an idea and expand it out to crazy degrees. Like they always loved at Seinfeld real life stories, because then it became, it kind of had a leg up if it happened in real life. So I told Larry David when I worked at Curb that I had this great umbrella. It was a fold up umbrella, but it was like an umbrella in a million, like when you took it out, it like clicked beautifully open, click close. I just love this umbrella. And then I lost it at a Japanese restaurant. And then when I went back to find it, I was like, after a rainy day in LA, I was like, did you guys find a black umbrella? It was like, a black fold up one? Yeah, we have about 30 back here. I was like, yeah, but mine says the Omni Dallas on it. I took it from the hotel. So then he found it. But in the show, Larry made it, took that germ of an idea, and that he has a fight with the guy who owns the Japanese restaurant. So then it becomes, is he going to give it back? And then it becomes, well, it says Omni Dallas on it. Doesn't it really belong to the Omni Dallas Hotel? So, it was always real life magnified to hilarious extremes.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to ask you about the writer's room. There were times where you pitch a joke, and there's a lot of times, there's maybe 15 writers at the table, and there's overlap, and it's really funny, and nobody reacts, and you don't know, did they not react because they didn't hear it, or did they not react because they didn't think it was funny? So you don't want to bring it up again and seem like an idiot, because if they did hear it, and they just passed on it, it's so embarrassing. So you don't bring it up. And then like a minute later, some other writer pitches the same exact idea, and it gets a huge laugh. And you're like, wah, wah. And you can't say, hey, I said that joke, because you can't be that person in the writer's room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the important thing about the writer's room. You have to be good, but people have to like you a lot.
Yeah.
You could be a great, great writer, but if people don't like you in the writer's room, you may not get a job on that show.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, it's what I always, I never written on a sitcom before, and Larry and Jerry hired me just because they knew me from the stand-up world, and anybody who was hired was a, quote, easy hang. You have to be someone that people like to hang out with. And when I talk to people in business, everybody knows that too. You could be the smartest in your job, graduate top of your class at Harvard, but if you're a drag to be around, you're not going to last very long in whatever endeavor you pursue.
So I want to talk about your book, How to Write a Funny Speech.
Yes, great.
And I just had my 60th birthday, and I had 150 people in my house, and I had to give a speech. Sue, you saw it. It was unwritten. I did the best I could, but I could have used your book beforehand. Sue, what did you describe my speech to Carol?
Well, I thought it was a great mixture. I mean, it was there was some poignancy in there. There was humor in there.
Yeah.
You're a likable guy, and everybody I think everybody really, really liked your speech. I think
Did they?
everybody really positively reacted to it. It wasn't too long.
Yeah, it wasn't long.
You didn't stay too long at your own fair.
Yes. I closed with a famous line from Satchel Paige.
What's that?
Age is just mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter.
That's great.
That was my outline. So, but what advice would you give? So let's say I was able to talk to you before I did my big speech. What advice would you have given me? Oh, there it is.
Yes.
How to write a speech.
How to write a funny speech.
How to write a funny speech, right. Well, the beauty, I think, of our book, Rick Mitchell and I, is that it's short, it's handy, it's compact. We didn't want to go through hearing one more crappy speech at an event to help people. And, it's very basic. Not only do we give you 101 things that people should already know, but we walk people through it, beginning, middle, and end, and how to insert the funny in there. But some of the basics that we're surprised people don't know are, number one, the length. Keep it 5 minutes and under.
Yeah.
You've got to keep it brief because, when you hear crying at an event and it's not a baby, your speech is going too long. So that's one of the main things. The other thing that people don't realize, I'm asked to give a speech, and they feel like to really express all my emotions, I have to really, the length of my speech really shows how much I care about these people. That's not true. And you're usually not the only person speaking. There are many other people, and you're waiting for the food normally.
Mm-hmm.
They usually have the speeches before the food. I don't know about your 60th birthday if they did that, but people are getting hangry.
Yes.
So that's why you have to keep it short. The other big thing that people do is they get up and they say their name, and then they don't say who they are to the person. They start talking, and it's like, is this a roommate? Is this a friend from college? Is this a relative? And it becomes an episode of Dateline where the entire speech, you're like, who, what, So you have to say who you are to the person because it gives it the context that you need to make this work. And drinking. People are nervous. What we say in the book is everybody gets nervous. You're supposed to be nervous. If you're not nervous, that's something's gone wrong. So knowing that should also put people more at ease. So people have a drink and then they feel good. Oh, okay, I'm ready to give the speech. Then they have 7 more.
Yeah.
Don't do that because then the person who's up there, what is worse than the person who's up there hammered and you have to witness this spectacle?
Yes.
So also watch the drinking.
Good advice. Last wedding I went to, the best man he was mean, he was loud, he was drunk.
Yeah, it's the worst. It can absolutely, a bad speech really can derail an entire event. Lori and I, my wife Lori and I went to a wedding where the father of the bride got up and a very accomplished daughter, but he just kind of read off her resume, like, Melissa, graduated from Yale, and then she did her master's and droning on. And, we're sitting there like, what is this, a job fair? I mean, like, and it was so bad that at the valet parking when we were leaving, people were talking about the speech and how horrible it was.
Yeah,
and
that's a bad sign.
Nobody wants their event to be, talking about, especially a bride, talking about your father's horrible speech at your wedding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tom and I went to a wedding, a friend of mine who I worked with on the Osbournes, who's an editor, really cool, charming guy. And he married this very, very pretty, sexy, just beautiful woman, right? So his brother is the best man.
Yeah.
He gets up. And I don't think it had anything to do with how much he drank or whatever. He's just kind of a bonehead. This was like the quintessential Southwest want to get away moment. So he starts talking about his brother's new wife and how beautiful she is and how sexy she is. And he, when his brother first started dating her, he stayed at their house, and all he can hear is like noise coming from his brother's room, like, they were making love. So, and he did, and she was moaning like you would not believe. And,
Oh my God.
and it kept me up. And it was, and he was talking about, like, what she would walk around the house with like negligee. People were groaning, and it was so uncomfortable. So her father followed him, and he's this very classy. He's from Spain, very, very classy, handsome, peaceful guy.
Yeah.
And the first thing he says, well, I am going to celebrate my daughter a little bit differently.
Oh, wow.
And everybody laughed, of course. But like you said, everybody at the wedding. And I felt so bad for my friend, because he's like the sweetest guy, like the polar opposite of his bonehead brother.
Right.
And it was just so uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, that's good that he went up and made the switch. I mean, it's another thing we talk about in the book. You also have to read the room. I mean, that was very savvy of him to get up and acknowledge what had come before him and making that, swift turn away. So, things like that, following someone, if they drop a platter of chicken divan in the room, like acknowledging and being in the moment. A lot of people read their speech, they just look down their phone or a piece of paper. Have some bullet points. That's a big piece of advice too. Don't just read, because you want it. Being in the moment is really what it's all about. And your personal stories is the gold of any speech. So we really show people how to incorporate all this stuff into a really nice package of under 5 minutes for their event.
Yes.
Well, you and Rick would really a perfect pairing to have written a book like this, because he did stand up too, didn't he?
Yes, he's a
and he's a
stand-up
comedy
hero.
writer.
Yes.
And when I was reading the book, what I related to so much, have being a comic for so many years, that it's a lot of stuff that you deal with being a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
You're up there talking in front of people, a lot of people that you don't know. Sometimes there's people in the audience you do know, but it's very, very relatable to that art form.
Yes. That's another big mistake we found that people make is inside jokes. I mean, it should all be outside jokes that everyone gets. Because when people veer off into these things like, what is it? And it's usually some really raunchy story. I've seen bridesmaids get up there and talk about, Tiffany's tattoos or her piercings. And it's just like, read the room, ladies.
Yeah.
Not appropriate.
If somebody is not funny, if somebody is not a funny person, is it possible for them to give a funny speech?
Well, Steve, the good news about our book is that if somebody really doesn't think they're funny, in the back, we have a section called Jokes to Steal.
Oh, wow.
Lists of jokes for every event. Feel free, people. Take them, use them at your leisure. They're all yours. So we have that. But as I mentioned before, we also have a step-by-step way that someone can make a funny speech. And it's usually in relation to memories that people have. Usually how two people meet is a funny story. Sue and I didn't remember the exact moment, but, most married couples remember the moment that they first met, or just little stories can also be funny. I know someone who was talking about his mom, and we were talking about stories that he had. And he said that growing up, he asked his mom, to get him some shredded wheat at the grocery store. And she came home with 3 boxes. And she was like, I didn't know which kind you liked. So it's a cute story, but it also says something about the type of person his mom was. So it's really good to mine these kind of stories. We tell people, if you were sitting in a bar next to a stranger and they asked you about this person, you're usually going to tell them 1 or 2 entertaining things about this person or about experiences you've had together. And you can build a funny speech from there for sure. And if you're really lazy, we have a section of templates so that it's kind of like fill in the blanks, Mad Libs that you can really just build your speech. We make it super easy.
Awesome. So I want to ask, because I'm a gay guy. I got the award show gene. I love award shows. I watch them religiously. And you write on I know you wrote on the Oscars recently, right?
Yeah.
What are the demands of that? Knowing that you're dealing with not just the industry but the world. How do you go about writing a joke, composing a joke for that?
Well, the Oscars is its own different animal, or really any award show, because it really comes down, you can pitch as many jokes as you want. It just comes down to the host and their sense of what is appropriate, what's funny, and what's maybe something too risky to venture out with. So much lands on the shoulders of the host. What I think was brilliant about Conan being a first-time host is not only did he have his whole team of writers writing him jokes, he had so many of them, and he tried them out, which is always really important. We know his stand-ups. But he really, I feel like, made the right choices in where to go, where you can kid people, and where you can't. There was never an uncomfortable moment and there have been those in some Oscars and award shows where, I don't know. And so it's really, I think, job lands squarely on the shoulders of the host to make those decisions. And if you have a good host, certainly Conan has been on TV so long. He knows who he is, his brand, and he could be really careful with where to venture and where not to.
Yeah, he totally nailed it. Nailed it. It was an amazing job.
It was kind of surprising to me that he never hosted the Oscars,
right?
I mean, because he was perfect. I wanted to ask you about those moments when the show's going on and these are not planned jokes. These are jokes that are written during the show.
Yes.
Because I know working on sitcoms, while it's during a taping, the audience doesn't react the way you want them to react, and you're changing jokes, every now and then.
Yes.
So what's that dynamic like?
Well, that happens, like when I worked with Billy Crystal for a couple of times, and he's also an amazing host. I just remember one year, it was the year that, I don't know if you remember, one of the Oscars had been stolen and they hadn't been able to find it.
Right.
So one of the presenters that year was Erykah Badu, the singer, and she came out with a very long, big headdress.
Yep.
And Billy came off the side, was like, we need a joke. And I pitched, I think we found out where the missing Oscar is. In her thing. And it was like, yes. And he went out and he did it and it worked. And there's no better feeling, than that of coming up with a joke, the host liking it, and then 1 billion people hear it. It's really, really quite thrilling. So, this year, as I mentioned, Conan had his team of writers and they were off stage with him. This year I was on the show team where you write the presenters, patter and deal with the presenters in the green room, going over their lines and going over them. It's funny. A lot of people, there's such a misconception when I talk to people about the Oscars. They're like, how do the actors feel about when you just give them the script and they have to do it? It's like, it is way collaborative. I mean, we never say to the celebs, oh, this is your thing. You know, we make sure they're 100% comfortable with what they go out with and that they feel absolutely 100% comfortable with it. So, and a lot of times they come up with great ideas or great lines that they never thought of. So I know this year Conan had, he had his guys right off there, and he came up with some great off the cuff jokes that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I was glad to see they're bringing him back for next year to host
Yes.
the Oscars again, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. I thought he did a really nice job. He celebrated the movies. He celebrated the actors. He had a little fun. He did poke a little bit, but I thought generally speaking, he got the entire event and set the tone for what was a really good show, I think.
He did. He really did. And I kind of knew he was going to be great because I went backstage to wish him luck before he went out. And he was like, you know what? I wanted to just go out and have fun. And he did. And I've seen the other side of hosts that, you know, before they go out there, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he really made it like it was his show, like his late night show. That's exactly how it felt. I was very cozy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. He did an amazing job, and I'm glad they're having him back next year.
Well, Carol, listen, the book was a perfect opportunity to have you on to talk with you. Really appreciate it. It's called How to Write a Funny Speech on Marriage, Aging, Career Changes, Family, Other Funny Business. There it is. Go get that. Co-written with Rick Mitchell.
Yes.
Carol, it is awesome to meet you. Awesome to get you on. I hope we can do this again.
Yeah, absolutely. It was about time that we did it, and I'm glad we did.
There she is, Carol Leifer, not joining us from a comedy condo. The comedy condo thing is fascinating to me. Just a comedy club will rent a condo and stick their comics in there?
You know, people that have never, ever stayed in a comedy condo will never, ever understand what that life was like.
Yeah.
Like, Carol was talking about this guy who was living there. We thought was the opening act.
Loose roommate.
And, you know, I remember there was a club that I worked in Alabama, and it was me and two guys. And there was an older guy staying in this apartment, and it was a small apartment.
Right.
And his name was Rod or Ron. I'll never know to this day if I was calling him the wrong name. And apparently he had separated from his wife. He was the owner of the club's best friend.
Okay.
And he needed a place to stay. So they stuck him in our condo. And, you know, this was, I mean, it was probably during a time in my career where I was making some money, but I wasn't making like a lot of money.
Right.
And, you know, you buy food, everybody buys food. You know, you usually didn't share your food. It was kind of like a dorm, living in like a suite of a dorm.
Right.
Where you label your food and all of that. So I wake up in the middle of the night, and this guy is like slithering around. I'm in my pajamas.
Really?
And he's in the refrigerator, and I catch him eating our food.
Oh, wow.
And I said something to him like, hey, dude, you know, like, you know, this is our food. What's, you know, it's bad enough that, you know, I'm thinking to myself, it's bad enough that you're living here. Anyway, so I was kind of afraid of the club owner. I think he was mob connected.
Oh, really?
He was a really just a mean, horrible guy. He reminded me actually of Jake LaMotta.
Oh, really?
And I was afraid to complain, but I had to. And he ended up kicking the guy out.
Did he? Just kicked the rando right out of there?
But like these living situations, and I wish I would have brought this up with Carol. The comic strip in Florida had a house that they put you up in.
Okay.
And it was really, really disgusting. It was dirty. Like the doors didn't lock. A screen door was like hanging by a thread. And they had a pool in the backyard. And I know this is going to sound disgusting, but some comic the week before I got there shit in the pool.
Oh, come on.
Okay. No one came and cleaned it up.
Right.
So my parents were living not that far. They were, I was in Fort Lauderdale. So they were like maybe a half an hour away. And my mother wanted to come meet me at the condo, see where I was staying, and then take me out to lunch. And I actually went to another house down the street and waited outside of like a nicer house.
Really? So you were pretending?
I was pretending. There was
Because
no
there was
way
a
in the
dump
world.
in the pool.
Well, not only that, that was terrible. But
Yeah.
just where I was staying, she would have said, you're going back to our apartment and I'll drive you to the gig every day. Yeah, it was just disgusting. But that's how they treated us. Like we were second-rate citizens.
Well,
yeah, it was pretty bad.
between the two of you, I feel like I got a pretty good insight into what it was like to be a comic during that era. And you guys worked hard.
We did. We did. It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. Thank you very much to Carol for joining us. Loved having her. Would love to have her back. Sue, thank you for all of the comedy tales from the road. And we will see everybody next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.